Here are some delicious Christmas dinner recipes that will help you to sleep. Our first recipe is a true showstopper that combines rich flavors and impressive presentation. Roast leg of lamb with rosemary and garlic. This dish is the perfect choice for a special Christmas dinner, where the tender meat is infused with the earthy scent of rosemary and the savory depth of garlic. It's a meal that will delight your guests and make for a memorable holiday celebration. Let's begin. Start by preparing the lamb. Begin by selecting a high-quality leg of lamb, ideally around 5 to 6 pounds, bone-in or boneless depending on your preference. A bone-in roast tends to have more flavor, while a boneless roast is easier to carve. Pat the lamb dry with paper towels to make sure the seasoning sticks well. Next, make small cuts all over the lamb's surface using a sharp knife. These pockets will allow the flavors of rosemary and garlic to get deep into the meat. Prepare the garlic and rosemary mixture. Finely chop 4 cloves of garlic and strip the needles from 3 sprigs of fresh rosemary. Combine them in a small bowl with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Mix this combination until it forms a fragrant paste. Rub this mixture generously into the cuts you made earlier, pressing the garlic and rosemary deep into the lamb. Season the lamb. Once the lamb is covered with the garlic rosemary paste, rub the rest of the meat with extra salt and pepper. The seasoning should be even to enhance the flavors of the lamb while roasting. If you like a touch of citrus, rub a lemon over the lamb for a fresh flavor that pairs beautifully with the rich meat. Sear the lamb. To seal in the juices and create a nicely browned crust, heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a large pan over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, carefully place the lamb in the pan. Cook it for 3 minutes on each side, until the meat is golden brown. This step is essential for developing flavor and texture, so don't skip it. After searing, transfer the lamb to a roasting pan, fat side up. The pan allows heat to reach all sides of the meat, making sure it cooks evenly. Roast the lamb. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. Place the lamb in the oven and roast it for 20 minutes to develop a nice brown crust. Then, lower the oven temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius, and continue roasting for about 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on your preferred level of doneness. For medium rare, the internal temperature should reach 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 54 degrees Celsius, and for medium, aim for 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius. Be sure to use a meat thermometer to check the internal temperature to avoid overcooking. Prepare the roasting juices. While the lamb roasts, make sure to baste it every 30 minutes with the juices that gather in the pan. This helps keep the meat moist and adds extra flavor to the crust. If the pan looks dry, you can add a small amount of water or stock to prevent burning and ensure that there are enough drippings for the sauce. Rest the lamb. Once your lamb has reached the desired internal temperature, remove it from the oven and let it rest for at least 15 minutes. Resting allows the juices to redistribute, ensuring the meat stays tender and juicy when sliced. Cover it loosely with aluminum foil while it rests to keep the warmth intact. Make the sauce. If you want to make your meal even better, you can make a simple sauce with the drippings. Pour the drippings from the pan into a pot, leaving the fat behind. Add 1/2 cup of red wine and scrape up any brown bits left in the pan, which are full of flavor. Let the wine simmer for 7 minutes until it reduces slightly. Add 1 cup of beef or vegetable broth and continue to cook for another 10 minutes, letting the sauce thicken. For a rich finish, stir in 1 tablespoon of butter just before serving. Pour this sauce over the lamb slices to add a luxurious touch of flavor. Slice and serve. After resting, carve the lamb into thick slices, making sure to cut along the grain for the most tender pieces. Arrange the slices on a warm serving platter and drizzle with the red wine sauce. Garnish with a sprig of rosemary for an elegant touch. Side dish ideas. Roast leg of lamb goes great with hearty side dishes like mashed potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts, or a fresh green salad with a tangy dressing. For a festive touch, you can serve it with a mint yogurt sauce, which complements the richness of the lamb beautifully. For variations, you can experiment with different herbs to flavor the lamb. Thyme, oregano, or even a touch of lavender can add a unique twist. If you prefer a citrusy flavor, try marinating the lamb in lemon juice or adding lemon zest directly to the garlic-rosemary mix. Leftovers. Leftover roast leg of lamb can be stored in an airtight container in the fridge for up to 3 days. To reheat, slice the lamb and warm it gently in the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, 150 degrees Celsius, until heated through. For a quick meal, serve the leftover lamb in sandwiches, salads, or wraps. This roast leg of lamb with rosemary and garlic is a classic Christmas dish that combines the perfect balance of rich, juicy meat with aromatic herbs. Its simplicity and elegance make it an ideal centerpiece for your holiday table, creating a memorable meal that will be enjoyed by all. For our second recipe, we have grilled lobster with herb butter, a luxurious yet easy-to-make dish that will elevate any Christmas meal. The lobster's delicate sweetness is enhanced by the rich, savory herb butter, making it a perfect treat for a festive dinner. Let's dive right in. Start by preparing the lobsters. You will need 4 live lobsters, ideally around 1.5 to 2 pounds each. Begin by bringing a large pot of salted water to a boil. Once the water is boiling, carefully add the lobsters, one at a time, making sure they are fully submerged. Cover the pot and cook the lobsters for about 8-10 minutes, or until they turn bright red and their shells become firm. Remove the lobsters from the water and let them cool for a few minutes. Once cooled, place each lobster on its back and use a sharp knife to split the shell down the middle, from head to tail. This will expose the meat and allow the flavors to infuse during grilling. Carefully remove the lobster's digestive tract and any other inedible parts, keeping the meat intact. The shell can be left attached to the body for presentation, as it will help hold the lobster together while cooking. Prepare the herb butter. For this, you'll need 1 cup of unsalted butter, softened to room temperature. In a small bowl, combine the softened butter with 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, finely chopped, 1 tablespoon of fresh chives, 2 teaspoons of lemon zest, and 1 clove of garlic, minced. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and a few cracks of black pepper to season the butter. Mix everything together until it forms a smooth, flavorful paste. For a bit of a kick, you can also add a pinch of cayenne pepper or chili flakes, but this is optional depending on your preference for spice. Now, spread the herb butter over the lobster meat. Use a spoon or small spatula to gently spread a generous amount of the herb butter over each exposed lobster half. Be sure to cover the meat thoroughly, allowing the butter to seep into the flesh. You can reserve some of the butter for basting later on the grill or for serving with the lobster. Prepare the grill. Preheat your grill to medium-high heat. If you're using a charcoal grill, let the coals burn down to a steady heat with no direct flames. For a gas grill, simply preheat it for about 10-15 minutes. Make sure the grill grates are clean and lightly oiled to prevent sticking. grill the lobsters. Place the lobster halves on the grill, meat side down, and cook for about 4–5 minutes. This will create grill marks and allow the lobster meat to start absorbing the smoky flavor from the grill. Once the meat side is nicely seared, flip the lobsters over so that the shell side is down. Continue grilling for another 5–7 minutes, or until the lobster meat is firm and opaque. The lobster shells will be charred, and the meat will be fully cooked. While the lobster is grilling, you can baste it with any leftover herb butter, using a brush or spoon. This adds another layer of flavor and ensures the lobster stays juicy. If you like your lobster extra buttery, you can add some additional butter during the last minute of grilling. Once the lobster is done, remove it from the grill and let it rest for a few minutes. This allows the flavors to settle and prevents the meat from being too hot to handle. If you prefer, you can squeeze a bit of fresh lemon juice over the lobster for a bright, tangy finish, or serve it with lemon wedges on the side. Serve the lobster. Once rested, arrange the lobster halves on a platter and garnish with a sprinkle of fresh parsley for a pop of color. If desired, you can also drizzle any remaining herb butter over the lobster for extra richness. This dish pairs beautifully with a simple green salad, roasted vegetables, or even a side of garlic bread for a complete meal. For variations, you can experiment with different herbs and spices in the butter. Fresh thyme, tarragon, or even a bit of freshly grated Parmesan can all work well. If you prefer a more robust flavor, try adding a tablespoon of white wine or champagne to the herb butter for added depth. Leftovers. If you have any lobster left, it can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. The leftover meat can be used in salads, pasta dishes, or even lobster rolls. To reheat, gently warm the lobster in a covered pan on low heat, or in a microwave on a low setting to avoid drying out the meat. Grilled lobster with herb butter is a simple yet elegant dish that brings out the best in lobster. The combination of smoky grilled lobster and the rich, flavorful butter makes it the perfect indulgence for a Christmas dinner. This dish requires a bit of preparation, but the result is a truly memorable meal. For our third recipe, we have braised beef short ribs with red wine sauce, a hearty and flavorful dish perfect for a Christmas dinner that is both comforting and elegant. The beef short ribs are slow cooked until tender, with the deep flavors of the red wine sauce infusing the meat, making it a dish your guests will savor. Let's get started. Start by preparing the short ribs. You will need 6 bone-in beef short ribs, each about 1.5 pounds. Pat the ribs dry with paper towels to remove any excess moisture, which will help them brown more easily. Season generously with salt and black pepper on all sides to enhance the flavor. Heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a large, heavy-bottomed pot over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, carefully place the short ribs in the pot, making sure not to overcrowd them. Brown the ribs for about 3–4 minutes on each side until they develop a rich golden brown crust. Once browned, remove the short ribs from the pot and set them aside. Add 1 diced onion, 2 carrots, peeled and cut into chunks, and 2 celery stalks chopped to the pot. Stir the vegetables occasionally for about 5 minutes, cooking until they soften and begin to develop some color. Add 4 cloves of garlic, minced, and cook for another minute, stirring constantly to avoid burning the garlic. Now it's time to deglaze the pot. Pour in 1 cup of red wine, preferably something dry like Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot. Stir to scrape up any browned bits stuck to the bottom of the pot, as these bits are full of flavor. Let the wine simmer for 2, 3 minutes to reduce slightly and cook off the alcohol. Next, return the short ribs to the pot, placing them in a single layer on top of the vegetables. Add 2 cups of beef broth to the pot, ensuring the ribs are mostly covered by the liquid. If needed, add a bit more broth or water. Add 2 sprigs of fresh thyme, 2 bay leaves, and a teaspoon of black peppercorns to the pot and stir gently to combine the flavors. Bring the mixture to a simmer, then reduce the heat to low, covering the pot with a lid. Let the short ribs braise for about 2.5 to 3 hours, or until the meat is fork tender and easily pulls away from the bone. During the braising process, check the pot occasionally and add more liquid if necessary to keep the ribs mostly submerged. Once the short ribs are done, carefully remove them from the pot and set them aside on a platter. Discard the bay leaves and thyme stems, and use a slotted spoon to remove the vegetables. You can either discard the vegetables or serve them alongside the ribs as a garnish. Now, prepare the sauce. Place the pot back on the stove over medium-high heat and bring the braising liquid to a boil. Allow it to cook for about 10-15 minutes, stirring occasionally until the sauce thickens and reduces to a rich, flavorful consistency. Taste the sauce and adjust the seasoning, adding more salt and pepper as needed. For a silky texture, you can strain the sauce through a fine mesh sieve to remove any remaining solids, or leave it as is for a heartier texture with the vegetables still in it. To serve, place the short ribs on a warm platter and spoon the sauce over the top. Garnish with a sprinkle of freshly chopped parsley for a touch of color. This dish is ideal served with mashed potatoes, creamy polenta, or roasted vegetables to soak up the rich sauce. For a twist, you can also serve it with a side of garlic bread to add a bit of crunch and extra flavor. For variations, you can experiment with different herbs. Rosemary or oregano can complement the beef beautifully, and a touch of balsamic vinegar added to the sauce can bring a deeper, sweeter flavor to balance the richness of the ribs. If you prefer a sweeter sauce, you can add a tablespoon of brown sugar or honey while the sauce is reducing. Leftovers. If you have any leftover short ribs, they can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat gently in the sauce on the stovetop over low heat to prevent the meat from drying out. Braised beef short ribs with red wine sauce is a dish that combines rich flavors and tender meat, making it the perfect choice for a Christmas dinner that will leave your guests wanting more. The slow braising process makes the beef incredibly tender, and the deep, savory red wine sauce ties it all together beautifully. Next dish is pan-seared duck breast with cherry sauce. This dish, pan-seared duck breast with cherry sauce, is an elegant and flavorful option for your Christmas dinner. The rich, tender duck breast pairs perfectly with the sweet and tangy cherry sauce, creating a memorable meal that combines savory and fruity elements. Let's begin. Start by preparing the duck breasts. You will need 4 boneless duck breasts, ideally with skin on for extra flavor and crispy skin. Pat the duck breasts dry with paper towels to ensure the skin crisps up when searing. Score the skin in a crisscross pattern using a sharp knife, being careful not to cut into the meat. This helps the fat render out during cooking, leading to a crispy golden brown skin. Season both sides of the duck breasts generously with salt and pepper. Heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a large skillet over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, place the duck breasts in the skillet, skin side down. Sear the duck breasts for about 6-8 minutes, or until the skin is crispy and golden brown. As the duck sears, press down gently with a spatula to ensure even cooking. Once the skin is crispy, flip the duck breasts over and cook for an additional 3-4 minutes for medium rare, or longer if you prefer a more well-done result. Remove the duck breasts from the skillet and set them aside to rest. While the duck rests, you can prepare the cherry sauce. In the same skillet, reduce the heat to medium and add 1/2 cup of chopped shallots. Sauté the shallots for 2-3 minutes or until they become soft and translucent. Add 1 cup of pitted fresh or frozen cherries to the skillet along with 1/2 cup of red wine. Stir the ingredients together, scraping up any round bits left in the pan from the duck. Let the mixture simmer for about 5 minutes, allowing the wine to reduce by half. Once the wine has reduced, add 1/2 cup of chicken broth, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, and 2 teaspoons of honey. Stir well to combine, then continue simmering for another 5-7 minutes until the sauce thickens slightly. Season the sauce with salt and pepper to taste, and, if you like, add a few fresh thyme sprigs for extra flavor. After the sauce has thickened, remove it from the heat. To serve, slice the rested duck breasts into thin strips against the grain. Arrange the slices on a platter and spoon the cherry sauce generously over the top. For a beautiful presentation, garnish the dish with a sprig of fresh thyme or a few extra cherries. This dish pairs wonderfully with mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, or even a fresh green salad. For variations, you can experiment with different fruits in the sauce. Instead of cherries, try using raspberries or cranberries for a different flavor profile. If you prefer a more intense sauce, add a splash of brandy or cognac to the pan before simmering the cherries, allowing it to flame off for a deeper richness. Leftovers. Any leftover duck breast can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat the duck gently in a low oven or skillet, and serve with any remaining cherry sauce for a quick and delicious meal. Pan-seared duck breast with cherry sauce is a perfect dish for Christmas dinner, offering a combination of crispy duck and a sweet, savory sauce that will impress your guests and make the meal unforgettable. Our 5th recipe is roast prime rib with Yorkshire pudding, a show-stopping centerpiece perfect for Christmas dinner. The tender, juicy prime rib is complemented by a crispy, airy Yorkshire pudding that absorbs all the rich, savory juices from the roast. This classic dish will make your holiday meal memorable and delicious. Let's get started. Start by preparing the prime rib. You will need a 6-pound bone-in prime rib roast, which will serve about 6-8 people depending on the size of the portions. Take the roast out of the fridge about 1-2 hours before cooking to bring it to room temperature. This ensures more even cooking throughout the meat. Pat the roast dry with paper towels to remove excess moisture, which helps achieve a nice crust when roasting. Next, season the roast generously with salt and freshly ground black pepper, making sure to coat all sides of the meat. You can also rub the roast with 3-4 cloves of minced garlic and a couple of tablespoons of fresh thyme leaves for extra flavor. If you prefer a richer flavor, you can use 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard as a base before seasoning the roast, which will also help the herbs and seasonings adhere better. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, 230 degrees Celsius. Place the roast bone side down in a roasting pan, allowing the bones to act as a natural rack for the meat, which helps it cook evenly. Roast the prime rib in the preheated oven for 15 minutes to develop a flavorful golden brown crust. After 15 minutes, reduce the oven temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, 165 degrees Celsius, and continue roasting for about 1.5 to 2 hours, or until the internal temperature reaches 120 degrees Fahrenheit for rare, 130 degrees Fahrenheit for medium rare, or 140 degrees Fahrenheit for medium. Keep in mind that the roast will continue cooking slightly after you remove it from the oven, so it's best to take it out a few degrees before it reaches your desired doneness. While the prime rib is roasting, prepare the Yorkshire pudding. For this, you will need 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of whole milk, 4 large eggs, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a pinch of freshly ground black pepper. In a large mixing bowl, whisk the eggs and milk together until combined. Gradually add the flour and salt, whisking continuously to avoid lumps. Once everything is mixed, let the batter rest at room temperature for 30 minutes to an hour. Resting the batter allows the gluten to relax, resulting in lighter, puffier Yorkshire puddings. When the prime rib is nearly done, prepare the roasting pan for the Yorkshire pudding. After removing the prime rib from the oven, pour out any excess fat from the roasting pan, leaving about 2-3 tablespoons of drippings. Place the pan with the drippings back into the oven and heat for about 5 minutes. Once the pan is hot, carefully pour the Yorkshire pudding batter into the hot pan, filling it about halfway. Be cautious as the pan will be extremely hot. Return the pan to the oven and bake the Yorkshire pudding for 25-30 minutes or until it is puffed, golden, and crispy on the edges. Avoid opening the oven door during the first 20 minutes of baking, as this can cause the Yorkshire pudding to collapse. Once the Yorkshire pudding is done, remove it from the oven and let it cool slightly while you prepare the prime rib. To serve, slice the roast prime rib into thick slices, ensuring each slice has a portion of the flavorful crust. Arrange the slices on a serving platter and serve with the Yorkshire pudding alongside. You can also drizzle some of the pan drippings or a rich gravy over the prime rib and Yorkshire pudding for added flavor. For a more festive touch, garnish the plate with fresh herbs like rosemary or thyme, and serve with roasted vegetables like carrots, Brussels sprouts, or potatoes. The combination of tender beef and fluffy Yorkshire pudding is sure to be a crowd pleaser. For variations, you can experiment with different seasonings for the prime rib. Some people like to add a tablespoon of rosemary or a teaspoon of smoked paprika for extra flavor. If you prefer a different batter for the Yorkshire pudding, you can try substituting part of the milk with beef broth for a more savory version, or add a small amount of cheese like cheddar to the batter for a rich twist. Leftovers. If you have any leftover prime rib, it can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat the slices gently in a low oven or in a skillet over low heat to avoid drying out the meat. The leftover Yorkshire pudding can be reheated in the oven for a few minutes to regain its crispness. Salmon en papillon with dill cream. Sauce: salmon en papillon with dill cream. Sauce is a light yet flavorful dish that makes a wonderful addition to any Christmas dinner. The salmon is delicately cooked in parchment paper, allowing it to steam in its own juices, which keeps it moist and tender. Paired with a creamy, tangy dill sauce, this dish strikes the perfect balance of richness and freshness. Let's begin. Start by preparing the salmon fillets. You will need 4 skinless, boneless salmon fillets, about 6 ounces each. Season each fillet with salt, black pepper, and a squeeze of fresh lemon juice. You can also sprinkle a little garlic powder or finely chopped fresh thyme or parsley on top of the salmon for extra flavor, but this is optional. Set the fillets aside while you prepare the rest of the ingredients. Now, Prepare the parchment paper. You'll need 4 large sheets of parchment paper, each about 12 inches long. Lay 1 sheet of parchment paper on a flat surface, and then place a salmon fillet in the center of each sheet. You can add some additional seasonings or fresh herbs, such as a sprig of rosemary or dill, under the fillet for extra aroma during cooking. Once the salmon is in place, fold the parchment paper over the fish, creating a pocket or en papillote around it. Start by folding the edges of the paper over the salmon. Then fold the ends in tightly to seal the packet. This will trap the steam inside, ensuring the salmon cooks evenly and retains its moisture. Repeat this process for the remaining fillets. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, 190 degrees Celsius. Place the prepared salmon packets on a baking sheet, ensuring they are not overcrowded. Bake for about 15 minutes, or until the salmon is cooked through. The exact cooking time will depend on the thickness of the fillets, so keep an eye on them. When done, the fish should flake easily with a fork and have an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit, 63 degrees Celsius. While the salmon bakes, prepare the dill cream sauce. In a small bowl, combine 1/2 cup of sour cream, 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, and 2 tablespoons of fresh dill, finely chopped. Add 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and a pinch of salt and pepper. Stir everything together until smooth. Taste the sauce and adjust the seasoning as needed, adding more lemon juice or dill to suit your taste. For an extra tang, you can also add a small splash of white wine vinegar to the sauce. Once the salmon is cooked, remove it from the oven and let it rest for a minute or 2. Carefully open the parchment paper packets, taking care as the steam inside will be hot. Place each salmon fillet on a plate and spoon a generous amount of dill cream sauce over the top. For a beautiful presentation, you can garnish with a sprig of fresh dill or a slice of lemon on the side. This dish pairs well with a variety of side dishes such as roasted potatoes, a simple green salad, or steamed vegetables. The freshness of the salmon and the richness of the dill cream sauce create a perfect combination that feels light yet indulgent. For variations, you can experiment with different herbs and seasonings. Instead of dill, try using tarragon, parsley, or chives for a different flavor profile. You can also add a few thin slices of cucumber inside the parchment packet with the salmon for extra freshness and crunch. Leftovers. If you have any leftover salmon, it can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. Reheat gently in a low-temperature oven or microwave, being careful not to dry out the fish. Salmon en papillon with dill cream sauce is an elegant yet simple dish that brings fresh flavors to your Christmas dinner table. The gentle cooking method keeps the salmon moist and tender, while the tangy, creamy dill sauce adds richness and depth. It's a light but satisfying choice that will impress your guests and leave them asking for the recipe. Mushroom and chestnut. Wellington mushroom and chestnut Wellington is a savory and satisfying vegetarian dish that makes a stunning centerpiece for a Christmas dinner. The earthy mushrooms and rich chestnuts are encased in golden, flaky puff pastry, creating a perfect balance of textures and flavors. This dish offers a delicious alternative to traditional meat-based Wellingtons, while still delivering a sense of elegance and comfort. Let's get started. Begin by preparing the filling for the Wellington. You will need 2 cups of mixed mushrooms, such as cremini, shiitake, and portobello, finely chopped, Heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a large skillet over medium heat. Once the oil is hot, add the chopped mushrooms and cook for about 7 minutes, stirring occasionally until the mushrooms release their moisture and start to brown. The key here is to cook the mushrooms down to concentrate their flavor and remove excess liquid. Add 1 cup of cooked chestnuts, roughly chopped, to the skillet. Chestnuts add a rich, slightly sweet flavor and pair wonderfully with the mushrooms. Continue to cook for another 4 minutes to allow the flavors to meld together. Next, add 1 small onion, finely chopped, and 2 cloves of garlic, minced, to the skillet. Stir and cook for an additional 3 minutes until the onion softens and the garlic becomes fragrant. Season the mixture with 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a few cracks of freshly ground black pepper. Remove the pan from the heat and let the mushroom and chestnut mixture cool slightly. Once cooled, transfer the mixture to a food processor and pulse it a few times until it reaches a coarse paste. Be careful not to overprocess it. You want some texture in the filling. Return the mixture to the skillet over low heat and stir in 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. This will help bind the mixture together and absorb any excess moisture. Let the mixture cool completely before using it to fill the pastry. While the filling is cooling, prepare the puff pastry. You will need 1 sheet of puff pastry, thawed if frozen. Roll the pastry out on a lightly floured surface to a rectangle about 12 inches by 10 inches. Carefully, transfer the pastry onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. Spread the cooled mushroom and chestnut mixture down the center of the pastry, forming a long, log-like shape. Be sure to leave enough space around the edges to fold the pastry over the filling. Fold the sides of the pastry over the filling, covering it completely, and then fold the ends in to seal the Wellington. If desired, you can brush the edges of the pastry with a little beaten egg to help seal them securely. Turn the Wellington over so the seam is facing down, ensuring that it stays sealed during baking. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. Using a sharp knife, lightly score the top of the Wellington in a crisscross pattern or in any design you prefer. This will allow the steam to escape during baking and give the pastry a beautiful, decorative finish. Brush the top of the Wellington with a beaten egg to give it a golden, glossy finish when baked. Place the Wellington in the preheated oven and bake for 25-30 minutes, or until the pastry is golden brown and puffed up. The exact cooking time will depend on the thickness of the pastry, so keep an eye on it to ensure it doesn't burn. Once done, remove the Wellington from the oven and let it rest for about 5-10 minutes before slicing. To serve, cut the mushroom and chestnut Wellington into thick slices and arrange them on a serving platter. The flaky, golden pastry will give way to the savory mushroom and chestnut filling, making it as delightful to look at as it is to eat. This dish pairs well with a simple green salad, roasted vegetables, or mashed potatoes, making it a hearty and filling option for a festive meal. For variations, you can add some cooked spinach or kale to the filling for extra color and nutrients. A bit of grated Parmesan cheese or a handful of pine nuts can also be mixed into the filling for added richness and texture. Leftovers. If you have any leftover mushroom and chestnut Wellington, it can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. Reheat gently in the oven at a low temperature to keep the puff pastry crisp. Mushroom and chestnut Wellington is a dish that showcases the beauty of seasonal ingredients like mushrooms and chestnuts all wrapped in a deliciously flaky pastry. It's a comforting yet elegant option for a Christmas dinner that will impress your guests and offer a delightful change from more traditional meat dishes. Next recipe is crispy pork belly with apple compote, a flavorful and indulgent dish that brings together the richness of slow-cooked pork belly with the sweetness and acidity of a homemade apple compote. The crispy skin on the pork belly adds a satisfying crunch, while the compote provides a burst of fresh, fruity contrast, making it the perfect choice for a festive holiday meal. Let's begin. Start by preparing the pork belly. You will need a 4-pound piece of pork belly, skin on. Begin by scoring the skin in a crisscross pattern with a sharp knife. Make sure to only cut through the skin and fat, not into the meat itself. This step helps the skin crisp up during cooking. Pat the pork belly dry with paper towels to remove any moisture, as dry skin will lead to better crisping. Next, rub the pork belly all over with a generous amount of salt, black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of ground fennel seeds. The fennel seeds add a lovely aromatic flavor that pairs wonderfully with the pork. You can also rub in 2 tablespoons of olive oil to help the seasoning adhere. Preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, 150 degrees Celsius. Place the seasoned pork belly on a roasting rack set inside a roasting pan, skin side up. Roast the pork belly in the preheated oven for 2.5 to 3 hours, or until the meat is tender and the fat has rendered out. Check the pork belly every 30 minutes, and if the skin looks too dry, you can lightly brush it with a bit of oil to help it crisp up evenly. During the slow roasting process, the meat will become incredibly tender, while the skin will begin to puff and crisp. Once the pork belly is tender and the skin is golden and crispy, remove it from the oven. Turn the heat up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, 230 degrees Celsius, and return the pork belly to the oven for 20 minutes to allow the skin to crisp up further. Keep a close eye on it to avoid burning the skin. Once the skin is perfectly crisp, remove the pork belly from the oven and let it rest for 15 minutes before slicing. This resting time helps the juices redistribute and ensures a juicier result when sliced. While the pork belly is roasting, prepare the apple compote. For the compote, you will need 5 medium apples, peeled, cored, and cut into small chunks. Heat 2 tablespoons of butter in a large saucepan over medium heat. Once the butter has melted, add the apples along with 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a pinch of salt. Stir to combine and cook the apples for about 10-15 minutes until they soften and release their juices. Add 1/2 cup of water or apple cider to the saucepan and continue to cook for another 5-10 minutes, stirring occasionally. The liquid should reduce slightly and thicken into a syrup-like consistency. Once the apples are tender and the compote has reached your desired consistency, remove the pan from the heat and stir in 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice. The lemon juice adds a bright, tangy flavor that balances the sweetness of the apples. Once the pork belly has rested, slice it into 1-inch thick slices, making sure each slice has some crispy skin. Arrange the slices on a serving platter and spoon the warm apple compote over the top. For a finishing touch, garnish with a few fresh thyme sprigs or a light drizzle of balsamic glaze if you want a touch of sweetness and acidity. This dish pairs beautifully with roasted root vegetables, mashed potatoes, or a simple green salad. The rich pork belly and the fresh, fruity apple compote create a balanced combination of flavors that will delight your guests. For variations, you can experiment with different types of apples for the compote, such as Granny Smith for a more tart flavor, or gala for a sweeter taste. You can also add a splash of brandy or cider to the compote for extra depth and complexity. Leftovers. If you have any leftover pork belly, store it in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat the pork belly gently in the oven, and you can serve it with any remaining apple compote for a quick and delicious meal. Crispy pork belly with apple compote is a rich, flavorful dish that combines tender, juicy pork with a crunchy, crispy skin and a sweet, tangy apple compote. It's a luxurious choice for your Christmas dinner that will surely be a hit with your guests. Next recipe is veal osso buco with gremolata, a rich and hearty Italian dish that's perfect for a Christmas dinner. Osso buco, which means bone with a hole, refers to the slow-cooked veal shanks that are braised with vegetables, wine, and broth, resulting in a tender, flavorful meat that falls off the bone. Topped with a fresh gremolata, a mix of parsley, garlic, and lemon zest, this dish brings a bright and zesty contrast to the rich braised meat. Let's get started. Begin by preparing the veal shanks. You will need 4 veal shanks, each about 1 to 1.5 inches thick. Ask your butcher to cut them crosswise so that the bone marrow is exposed, which adds extra flavor during cooking. Pat the veal shanks dry with paper towels to ensure a good sear. Season both sides generously with salt and pepper. In a large, heavy pot or Dutch oven, heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, add the veal shanks to the pot and brown them on all sides for about 5 minutes. This step is important because it adds flavor to the meat and the braising liquid. Once browned, remove the veal shanks from the pot and set them aside. In the same pot, add 1 medium onion, finely chopped, 2 carrots, peeled and diced, and 2 celery stalks, diced. Stir occasionally and cook for 5-7 minutes, or until the vegetables soften and the onion turns translucent. Add 2 cloves of garlic, minced, and cook for another minute until fragrant. After the vegetables are cooked, add 1 cup of dry white wine to the pot, stirring to deglaze the bottom and lift any browned bits from the bottom of the pot. Allow the wine to cook off for about 2-3 minutes, reducing slightly. Next, add 1 can, 14 ounces, of crushed tomatoes, 1 cup of beef broth, and 1 cup of chicken broth. Stir everything together, making sure the vegetables and liquid are well combined. Add 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1 bay leaf, and a pinch of salt and pepper to season. Return the veal shanks to the pot, nestling them into the braising liquid. The liquid should come about halfway up the sides of the veal shanks. Bring everything to a simmer, then cover the pot with a tight-fitting lid and reduce the heat to low. Let the veal shanks cook slowly for 2.5 to 3 hours, turning the meat occasionally until the meat is tender and falling off the bone. If the liquid reduces too much during cooking, you can add a bit more broth or water to keep the veal shanks mostly submerged. While the veal shanks are braising, prepare the gremolata. Gremolata is a fresh, zesty topping that brightens up the rich, slow-cooked meat. In a small bowl, combine 1/4 cup of finely chopped fresh parsley, the zest of 1 lemon, and 2 cloves of garlic, minced. Mix everything together and set aside. Once the veal shanks are tender, remove them from the pot and set them aside to rest. Discard the bay leaf and use a slotted spoon to remove the vegetables from the sauce. If you prefer, you can blend the sauce until smooth or leave it chunky, depending on your texture preference. To serve, spoon some of the sauce onto each plate, then place a veal shank on top. Generously sprinkle the gremolata over the veal and sauce for a burst of fresh flavor. This dish pairs beautifully with mashed potatoes, polenta, or a side of roasted vegetables, as the rich sauce and tender meat complement these sides perfectly. For variations, you can use other cuts of meat like lamb shanks instead of veal, though the cooking time may vary slightly depending on the thickness and type of meat. You can also add other herbs like rosemary to the braising liquid for a more aromatic flavor. Leftovers. Any leftover osso buco can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat gently on the stovetop over low heat, adding a little broth if needed to loosen the sauce. Our 10th recipe is chestnut and sage stuffed turkey roulade, a flavorful and elegant dish that offers a twist on traditional roast turkey. This roulade features a tender turkey breast, filled with a savory stuffing made from chestnuts, fresh sage, and aromatic herbs, all wrapped up into a neat roll. It's a perfect alternative for a Christmas dinner, offering all the classic flavors of a roast turkey in a more manageable and elegant form. Let's get started. Start by preparing the turkey breast. You will need a boneless, skinless turkey breast, about 3-4 pounds. If your turkey breast is not already butterflied, ask your butcher to do this, or carefully slice it yourself to create an even layer of meat that you can roll up. Once the turkey breast is butterflied, place it between 2 sheets of plastic wrap or parchment paper, and gently pound it with a meat mallet or rolling pin until it's about 1/2 inch thick. This will help the turkey cook evenly and make it easier to roll. Next, season the turkey breast with salt and freshly ground black pepper on both sides. Set the turkey breast aside while you prepare the stuffing. For the stuffing, start by chopping 1/2 cup of fresh sage leaves and 1/2 cup of fresh parsley. In a large skillet, melt 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter over medium heat. Once the butter is melted, add 1 medium onion, finely chopped, and cook for 7 minutes until the onion softens and becomes translucent. Add 2 cloves of garlic, minced, and cook for another minute until fragrant. Now, add 1½ cups of chestnuts, peeled and roughly chopped. You can use canned or pre-cooked chestnuts for convenience, or roast them yourself. Stir the chestnuts with the onions and garlic, letting them cook for about 5 minutes to release their flavors. Add 1/2 cup of dried cranberries, a pinch of salt, and a few cracks of black pepper. Stir to combine, and then remove the skillet from the heat. Let the mixture cool for a few minutes. Once the chestnut mixture has cooled, add the chopped sage and parsley, and stir in 1/2 cup of fresh breadcrumbs to help absorb the moisture. If the mixture seems too dry, you can add a tablespoon of chicken broth or water to moisten it. This stuffing should be moist but not too wet, so adjust accordingly. Now, it's time to assemble the roulade. Lay the butterflied turkey breast out on a clean surface, skin side down. Spread the stuffing mixture evenly over the entire surface of the turkey, leaving about a 1-inch border on all sides. Carefully roll the turkey up from one side, making sure the stuffing stays inside. Use kitchen twine to tie the roulade every 2-3 inches, securing it tightly so that the filling doesn't escape during cooking. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, 190 degrees Celsius. Heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a large oven-safe skillet over medium-high heat. Once the oil is hot, add the turkey roulade and sear it on all sides for about 4-5 minutes until it's golden brown. This step helps develop flavor and ensures that the turkey will be crispy on the outside. Once the roulade is seared, transfer the skillet to the preheated oven and roast the turkey for 45 minutes to 1 hour, or until the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Celsius. If the roulade starts to brown too quickly, you can loosely cover it with foil to prevent burning. Once the turkey roulade is cooked through, remove it from the oven and let it rest for 10 minutes before slicing. This resting period helps the juices redistribute, ensuring that the turkey stays moist. To serve, slice the roulade into 1-inch thick rounds, arranging the slices on a platter. You can serve it with a side of gravy, mashed potatoes, or roasted vegetables, making for a well-rounded Christmas meal. The stuffing of chestnuts and sage brings a delicious earthiness that pairs perfectly with the turkey, and the presentation of the rolled turkey makes this dish both impressive and easy to serve. For variations, you can add other ingredients to the stuffing, such as sautéed mushrooms, leeks, or even a bit of crumbled sausage for extra flavor. If you prefer a more traditional flavor, you can substitute the chestnuts with other nuts, like pecans or walnuts. Leftovers. If you have any leftover turkey roulade, it can be stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat it gently in the oven or microwave. The leftovers make great sandwiches or can be sliced and served over a salad for a lighter meal. Grilled lamb chops with mint yogurt sauce. Grilled lamb chops with mint yogurt sauce. A flavorful and vibrant dish that combines the rich taste of lamb with a refreshing and tangy yogurt sauce. Grilled to perfection, these tender lamb chops are served with a cooling mint yogurt sauce that adds a burst of freshness. This dish is perfect for a Christmas dinner, offering a sophisticated yet simple option that will delight your guests. Let's get started. Start by preparing the lamb chops. You will need 8 lamb chops, about 1 inch thick. Trim any excess fat from the chops, leaving a little to enhance flavor and help with grilling. In a small bowl, combine 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 cloves of garlic, minced 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, and the zest of 1 lemon. Add salt and black pepper to taste. Rub this mixture over the lamb chops, making sure to coat them evenly. Let the chops marinate for at least 30 minutes, or if you have more time, refrigerate them for up to 2 hours to allow the flavors to develop. While the lamb is marinating, prepare the mint yogurt sauce. In a small bowl, combine 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt, 2 tablespoons of fresh mint, finely chopped, the juice of 1/2 lemon, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Add salt and pepper to taste and stir until well combined. The mint gives the yogurt a fresh, aromatic flavor that pairs beautifully with the richness of the lamb. Set the sauce aside in the refrigerator until you're ready to serve. Next, preheat your grill or grill pan over medium-high heat. If you're using an outdoor grill, oil the grill grates lightly with a paper towel, dipped in oil to prevent sticking. Place the lamb chops on the grill and cook for about 4-5 minutes per side for medium rare, or adjust the cooking time depending on your preferred level of doneness. Use tongs to turn the chops, making sure they develop a nice sear and grill marks. If you're using a grill pan, you can follow the same method on the stovetop, ensuring the pan is hot before adding the lamb chops. Once the lamb chops are done, remove them from the grill and let them rest for 5-10 minutes. Resting allows the juices to redistribute, ensuring the meat stays moist and flavorful. To serve, arrange the grilled lamb chops on a platter and drizzle with the mint yogurt sauce. You can garnish with extra mint leaves or a sprinkle of lemon zest for added freshness and color. This dish pairs well with roasted vegetables, couscous, or a light salad, offering a perfect balance of rich, grilled meat and a refreshing, creamy sauce. For variations, you can experiment with different herbs in the marinade, such as rosemary or thyme, to change the flavor profile. If you prefer a spicier sauce, add a pinch of cayenne pepper or chopped fresh chili to the yogurt sauce. Leftovers. If you have any leftover lamb chops, store them in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. Reheat gently in the oven or on the stovetop, but keep in mind that lamb can become dry if overcooked. The mint yogurt sauce can also be stored in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. Grilled lamb chops with mint yogurt sauce is a dish that offers a combination of bold flavors and fresh ingredients. The grilled lamb is perfectly complemented by the cooling yogurt sauce, creating a satisfying and elegant dish that is sure to be a hit at your Christmas dinner table.